Hello and welcome to Tuesday NEWSDAY, your #1 resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. Hey guys, so sorry to break our amazing streak of actually having NEWSDAY on a Tuesday by missing last week's NEWSDAY entirely. I mean, we were like 7 weeks straight of being on time, but between a bad bout of food poisoning, cabin fever, and being generally a slow week in terms of news, I figured I would just take a week off and come back strong this week. So here we are, and we've got a ton to cover. So let's just get right into the news. Some of you may remember the rhythm game hype from about 10 years ago when Guitar Hero and Rock Band were everywhere, and I mean everywhere. The whole industry practically crashed due to consumer burnout and publishers forcing sometimes 2 to 3 releases a year. But that doesn't mean I'm not nostalgic for the genre of plastic accessory rhythm games. I know I put far too many hours into Guitar Hero trying to master Through the Fire and Flames on Expert. I've been itching for something along those lines in VR, and while we did get Rock Band VR a few years ago, due to a number of core game mechanic changes, it never really took off. But this concept looks incredibly cool. It's called Unplugged Air Guitar, and it's just what you'd imagine by the name. A Guitar Hero style rhythm game using the Oculus Quest hand tracking that replaces the plastic guitar with an air guitar. If this is actually pulled off as well as it looks in the game, then we may have a really cool application of the Quest hand tracking that I didn't really expect. So far, we've gotten a ton of kind of janky but also somewhat impressive demos showing off the hand tracking, but nothing in terms of a full game or realized game concepts. But this looks really cool and decently promising. The creator Ricardo Acosta is also an app developer at Microsoft, and this is just a side project, but it does look sweet and it's the kind of thing I want to see more of from the hand tracking. Now let's slide into some more hardware news. This isn't necessarily new news, but it's the first time that these controllers have really caught my eye. This is the Atty Controller. You'll notice something very obvious about this thing is that there are no buttons anywhere on it, and that's because this whole thing uses a similar technology to the Valve Index's Knuckles, and that's finger tracking. So these were first announced a few months ago, and I definitely saw them go around, but the application seemed pretty limited. And as much as I hate to say it, the buttons that we do have on VR controllers are kind of important and there for a reason. I mean, the games are just designed to use them currently. Plus, way back, the actual explanation of how these would work for existing PC VR games was a little sketchy. But to be honest, the Etee controllers are kind of looking like an actual alternative to current controllers on the market. If you're using Steam-style laser tracking for VR, you've got basically 2 options for controller inputs: Vive wands or the Valve Index's Knuckles. Most people are likely to prefer the Knuckles over the wands due to the better ergonomics, finger tracking, and thumbsticks, but the Etee is coming with full Steam VR support just later this year, either through the dev kit using Vive pucks or later on with the purpose-built tracking ring. And it comes with finger tracking, like I said, even poised on Etee's Kickstarter to directly compete with the Knuckles. I did think this graph here is a little funny though. They should add an extra column for buttons, which brings up the point: how the heck does this thing work for existing games without a single button? And the answer is gestures and a trackpad. For example, if you want to pull a trigger like how you normally would on a typical VR controller by, pulling a trigger, you just gesture a trigger. You want to pinch or point, there's a gesture for that as well. But these are all things that you could already do on existing controllers. However, the idea is that the gestures would take place of button inputs by mapping them through SteamVR's built-in controller configurator. And of course, locomotion is handled via the trackpad where your thumb sits on the Etee. The company has already shown off a few games being played with them, including 2 that make total sense: Superhot and Beat Saber. Superhot is a good fit here as there really aren't any buttons to press anyways beyond grab, so it works well. Beat Saber makes sense too, but considering that you could literally strap Vive pucks onto anything and have that be your controller in Beat Saber, I really don't see the point here. But where Etee caught my attention was in their videos showing off HalfLife Alyx being played on the controllers. In general, it looks rough and certainly isn't perfect, but I see the potential and these controllers are now on my radar. The company's Kickstarter is live right now for the next month, so if you want to pledge to grab a pair, it's $200 for the dev kit, meaning you'll need to buy your own Vive pucks for them, or $249 for the purpose-built Steam VR version. I know this completely breaks the whole concept of the Etee, but man, I do wish they just threw a couple simple buttons on each side and big juicy thumbsticks in the middle of the trackpad. I mean, at that point, it would be a near one-to-one competition with the Knuckles, which I wouldn't mind. I also should mention that these controllers aren't necessarily meant for gaming, they're just capable of it. Like I said, if you're interested, then links are below. Next up is a sweet little headset that I've been watching for years now. This is the StarVR One. Finally out of development hell, is now available for purchase. 2 years ago, this headset was offered as a $3,000 premier VR headset with every feature you could possibly ask for. High resolution, custom lenses, eye tracking, extremely wide field of view with zero distortion. Then the parent company making the StarVR One was delisted from the Taipei Stock Exchange, causing the company to reorganize from being publicly listed to a private entity. Well, it's finally here, and I think we need to take a better look at it now. The thing was initially designed to be in high-end VR arcades and to be used in industrial and commercial applications, of course carrying a high price for the time, but 2018 was a very different landscape in terms of VR hardware than 2020, so maybe the price has gone down, not totally sure. The headset uses Steam VR laser tracking, carries a resolution of 1830 by 1464 per eye using AMOLED displays with an RGB striped pixel layout, versus the screen door-stricken pentile pixel arrangement that we see on the Vive or Vive Pro. 90Hz refresh rate, 210 degrees horizontal field of view, and 130 degrees vertical field of view. And to give you an idea of what that looks like, imagine your Oculus Quest and how far you could see from left to right. That's even less than how much you could see just up and down on the StarVR, all supposedly without distortion. And of course the headset ships with Tobii eye tracking, something that I wish would get closer to being an industry standard. So apparently you could now submit an inquiry to order one of these bad boys, as they're technically available for purchase. Although the new price isn't listed, but that doesn't mean that they'll actually sell you one. So far it seems that StarVR is only selling their headsets to a small number of developers and enterprise related companies. I did in fact submit a ticket to have a chance at buying one, not that I would or could even afford it, but out of curiosity, and frankly I've been ignored, which is fair enough. If a headset like this were to be made available though, and was somewhere in the $1,000 price range, I could see it actually having a decent consumer launch. People want good VR and they'll pay for it. The Vive Pro Eye is essentially a baby version of this headset with a lower resolution and starting to get pretty affordable. So if this thing gets cheaper and is actually made available for consumer purchase, maybe we'll start seeing it around as the new headset to flex on in VR chat. But now it's time for a meme break! So I'm not sure if you guys have seen this article, but it's a hilarious boomer take on what gamers will look like in 20 years. At first, I had to check the date to make sure it wasn't an April 1st meme, but no, it's real. This is actually what the article is trying to say you'll look like in 20 years if you keep grinding Final Fantasy VII Remake. I mean, come on, looks like peak performance to me. The crop top, PlayStation thumb, swollen ankles, 90-degree neck angle, and hairy ears? Look, this is okay though. We as VR gamers are literally getting the opposite effect. 20 years of beating sabers and swatting antlions and we'll be looking swole. Gamers sad, VR Chad. And now, back to the news. I'm sure you've seen all over the place that HalfLife Alyx is getting modded already for flat screen support. You know, so people that don't have a VR headset can still enjoy the story and feeling of HalfLife Alyx, just without the VR part. That's whatever, it was going to happen. I know some people are salty over this happening, but really, if anything, I think it would just get those people wanting a VR headset even more. But the mods that really interest me regarding HalfLife Alyx are the VR mods. And we've already seen some pretty sweet ones pop up. One of them is a horde mode that is pretty fun and a little terrifying. The game has hardly been out for a month, and this is one of the first full mods that we've seen for the game, just showing how bright the future of the modding scene is for Alyx. The horde mode is pretty much a full gameplay mode as well, featuring increasing enemy numbers each wave, a weapon and ammo purchase system, and a few little Easter eggs. Instructions on how to install it and where to download it are in the description. So one of my favorite VR games is Lone Echo. I made an entire video on it here and explain why it's one of my favorite games. But for being a 2017 release, Lone Echo still has some of the best visuals, controls, and locomotion methods out of any VR game ever released. Lone Echo 2 was announced way back in 2018 and was set to release Q1 of 2020. Well, Q1 is over, so where's the game? Unfortunately, Echo Games has announced that Lone Echo 2 has been delayed until later in 2020, so they could focus entirely on the launch of the Quest port of the multiplayer section of Lone Echo, Echo Arena. And that's right, we finally have news on Echo Arena after months of silence. Currently, alpha testing is underway for the Quest version of Echo Arena, the competitive disc-based sports game using the same locomotion method present in the mainline game. Echo Arena and Echo Combat have also been some of my favorite competitive multiplayer games in VR, so I'm definitely looking forward to the big spike of players that the Quest audience will bring. Right now, only select level 50 players are being pulled in for alpha testing, but it's still a promising thing that Arena is finally coming to the Quest. Now, in case you've been wondering what this gameplay is in the background, it's Swords of Gurrah. It's a game that I've been playtesting for quite a while with the guys over at Devster, and it's really captured my heart. Close quarter combat is inherently pretty difficult in VR, especially multiplayer close quarter combat. Usually, it just ends in a bunch of flailing around with swords or other weapons because there's no resistance or repercussions of doing so. Well, Swords of Gurrah does it a little differently. If you hit blades with somebody, your blades shatter. So instead of random swinging, you get a test of skill between two people to see who could outsmart the opponent, block at the right time, and strike when your opponent's defenses are down. I've been watching this game literally since I started the channel, and it's just about to launch in early access on April 21st, so go give him some love, and if you like what you see, wishlist the game on Steam. Just a good game concept from talented and dedicated VR indie developers. Literally the live stream of this whole VR thing that we got going on. Now it's time for question of the week. Well, I saw this one pop up quite a bit, so I'll just put it out there. Boneworks or HalfLife Alyx, which do I prefer? Well, I like both obviously, but for very different reasons. The freedom that Boneworks gives me, being able to sprint, jump, climb on almost anything, feels amazing. And I do believe that that is the future of VR gameplay in terms of a good shooter style game. And Boneworks honestly makes HalfLife Alyx feel pretty uninteractive. I can't sprint, jump, climb on things using my arms. Alyx just feels like a very safe approach to VR, while Boneworks gives you a physics puppet to control and says go for it. Now, some people's stomachs can't handle that, and that's understandable, but mine can, so that's the kind of gameplay that I prefer. Alyx, on the other hand, has incredible environments, atmosphere, and storytelling that Boneworks just straight up doesn't have. So in terms of story, world, ease of play, HalfLife Alyx is just about the best VR has to offer. But in terms of raw gameplay and fun I have playing the game, Boneworks takes that. So basically, I like them both for different reasons. Kinda wish that they could fuse, to be honest. Imagine a HalfLife Alyx with Boneworks controls. I don't know, what do you guys think about it? I know there have to be some pretty good opinions on both sides, so let me hear them. Make sure to leave your own question of the week below as well. Might just answer yours next. And that's the week's news. I'll be streaming today on Twitch, so stop on by, say hey. Join up in my Discord for updated scheduling on that. Also, want to thank all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas like Very Evil Shadow and Zinf. I couldn't be doing any of this without you. Don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.